Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to ProcureSmarter podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sharon Cook, and today we are talking to the wonderful Miss Daphne Wells. She is a professional, certified, and credentialed numerologist and intuitive success and mental fitness coach. She does business coaching using numerology. So I think that's fascinating, and we are going to talk to her. So stay tuned, everybody. Okay. All right, everybody, we are back with Miss Daphne Wells. And as I said earlier, she is a professional, certified, and credentialed numerologist with intuitive success and a mental fitness coach. Hi, Daphne.
Hello, Sharon.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited for this.
Yes, me too. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I obviously want to get into what you do as a business coach, but I also want to learn a little bit about you. Tell us about you and how you got here and just a little bit of your backstory.
So my backstory is having come out of a toxic, abusive marriage years ago, going through lots of counselors, I found that counseling didn't help me move forward. And I needed something to move forward to know what next was in my life. And in amongst all of that, I was an entrepreneur. I was in business. I actually at that stage had a hospitality business. And in that, I hired and fired 3 business coaches because they shitted on me. They told me what I should do. I knew what I should do. What I didn't know was how to actually get past what was stopping me inside of me doing it. And in amongst that process, I met up with a life coach, and that woman literally changed my life.
Wow.
And I had partly trained to be a counselor, wanting to help with a heart for helping women create the lives that they want for their families, having, with my backstory and history as well. And I thought after, like, that woman literally changed my life. She showed me how to move forward through coaching. And I was like, well, if I could learn that and marry into that my business skills, I can really help women create a lifestyle they want for them and their families, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're big on inspiring women. I had read on your site that you inspire women to make more money in record time.
Yeah. Yeah. So we as women are short of time, right? Because generally we've got families and partners and businesses or work and we kind of spread ourselves thin looking after everyone else. And so and yet we want to create the lifestyle we want for our family. And like women want money to help others, not just to buy doodads generally, right? We want to be able to make people's lives better. And we don't have excess time to do that. So we need to be able to do it in less time.
That's true. Yeah. So you're a big believer in freedom and
Yes.
teaching people how to make an effective and powerful business decision. And doing that, you use numerology and intuitive coaching. So, this lady that inspired you so much, was she into numerology? Is she the one that got you into it?
No, she got me into coaching. I discovered numerology a few years later. So as a child, I realized looking back, I was highly intuitive. Like I used to get messages all the time. And that was shut down because the people around me who I shared those messages with didn't understand. And so as an adult, once I tapped into my intuition again, because I have to admit, I didn't listen to it for years because I was told not to, right? And I was trusting it more and more, and I wanted to dive deeper into that and really trusting that and leaning that rather than, because I'm a great believer that if we just do everything from our heads, that's when we burn out and get into overwhelm.
True.
If we are aligned with our, if our head agrees with our heart, and our soul, then we can achieve far more in less time. Because you remember the crooked old man from that rhyme?
Right.
When we were, the crooked old man. So I always think of that when I think of us being out of alignment. If your head's disagreeing with your heart, then really hard to do things easily. It's like you're walking around with a crooked sore back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes everything harder when you have a sore back. We can all relate to that, can't we?
It does. Yeah. But I want to touch on this idea of freedom, because I had read some things that you had written, and you really are an advocate for women to be able to make choices for themselves. And if they do that through business, and if you help them do that through we want to touch on the mental fitness coaching, but it's really important to you, right? To give women freedom to make some choices.
Yes. So when I grew up, small town New Zealand, the message I was given was that you had to be married by a certain age, or you were going to be an old maid, and that was really bad. You had to then have children by the time you were a particular age, or it was just wrong, right? So you kind of
had failed in some way.
And you'd failed at life, right? These were the markers of success, right? And as a kid who never really fitted in anywhere, I did some of these things to try and fit in, right? And then realized that where was I in all of this? Like, I didn't even know who I was, coming out of that marriage with 4 children. I was like, so who am I? What's next? Like, there's got to be more to life than going to work and looking after children.
Right.
And so this freedom to choose, freedom to me is not spending all day on a beach with a laptop, sipping martinis. And that's, freedom is whatever we choose it to be. Freedom is, my definition is being able to choose anything our hearts desire. So that starts with really tapping into who we are, what it is that we want. And this is where numerology really comes in, because as women, we can go searching and we can be like, oh, well, I want to be like her, so I'll do what she does. And it doesn't fit. It's like putting on clothes that are the wrong size. Shoes that are the wrong size is a better example. And then going for a walk in them and you end up with sore feet, right? Because it wasn't a good fit. So numerology is, I believe, how we come into this world with a physical DNA in ourselves. So my personal belief is we come into this world with an energetic DNA. It's like a code, and that is calculated through numerology from your date of birth. And then I add my intuition into listen to the messages I receive and what the client I'm working with needs to hear from that calculation, how it applies to their life, to who they are. And in that code are the secrets of who you are energetically and why you're here in this lifetime. In other words, your contribution to the world. Because we all come with gifts and talents and skills to help everybody else to build a better world, right? And if we can spend a lot of our lives trying to figure out what that is. And numerology opens, I always say it unlocks the secret code to who you are. And that really helps shape. It tells you, it informs you of how you are energetically coded, which means that then when you lean into that, you can be in alignment with who you are. And everything happens then with ease and flow. Because you're not trying to be someone you're not. Because we come into this world as these perfect little babies, right? And and then human development, like science tells us that children between birth and 7 are like sponges. They soak up and believe everything they're told. And so in that time, unwittingly, the people who love us dearly and society shape and mold us into being who they tell us to be, really. And
Right.
so it's going back to who we are.
And would you say that numerology in business coaching is something that everybody can tap into, that you know, you don't have to be I don't know the right way to put it, but it is something that is universal, that there is something to be gained for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You obviously you need to be open to being aware of that, right? And you know, that's a choice that we all have. So if you are open to and curious about numerology, there is something in there for everyone, whether you're in business, whether you're not, because it impacts so it can help us curate a business that's right for us, like the right model of business for us. It can help us shape and define our ideal client, who we are here to work with, how we are here to help them. And it can, when we do all of that, it takes out a lot of that trial and error that we do in business. You know, trialing things to see if they work. Yeah, there's still a certain amount of that because it takes shaping and tweaking. And yet the energy behind the work you do and the people you help and how you are here to help them, when you tap into that, it's like you're floating down the river rather than paddling against the current.
Right. That's fascinating. I never really, I mean, I did some research for this interview, but I didn't think about it in terms of helping you find the right client or helping you find the right path for your business. So that's really fascinating.
It's fascinating, and it takes so much guesswork out.
So let's talk about, according to some of the, well, first of all, you wrote a book. So let's talk about the book you wrote. You wrote Decide, Choose Your Own Path, and path has capital letters because apparently that's going to mean something, right?
Yep. So path is the system that I realized over years that I was going through very similar things with my clients. This is back, I wrote this book 3 or 4 years ago, about 3 years ago now, I think. And I realized I was reteaching the same things with clients. And I was also meeting a lot of women who wanted my help, who, you know, couldn't afford to work with me, right? So I felt the call to write a book about it. And so Decide is really like we are not taught how to make decisions. It's a fundamental skill that we are not taught. And my core belief around that is that when we prepare, which is the P of path, in other words, when we have a really firm foundation, when we're aware of who we are, what we want from life, what our values are, what we believe, and when we have boundaries in place that stop us doing that over-giving and self-sacrificing that a lot of us women do, when we can say no, we know what to say no to and what to say yes to, all of those things, it becomes like we have this foundation on which we can build our life. So that's the prepare.
Okay.
And then the A of path is action. So then we get into action. But what actions? Like when we know what our priorities are and what's important to us, we can choose the actions, because you know the 80-20 rule, that, you know, 80% of what we do only gets us 20% of our results. 20% of what we do gets us 80% of our results. So when we know what that 20% is,
that's a great, I'm going to use that. That's really good.
And less time, right? So that's part of that action, getting into action, the right action for you and for your business, right? And for your life. And then the T is all about trust. So a lot of women, we don't feel confident about in ourselves. We don't feel confident to do what we really want to do. We lack confidence is a big thing for women. And confidence actually starts with trust and trusting yourself. And then once you trust yourself, you gather evidence and build on that evidence, right? And the more evidence you build, the more you trust yourself, the more confidence you have. And so there are steps in there in that piece of the book that, help you build that trust in yourself. And
right. Okay, so go ahead.
And then the H is all about hero. So you've got to be your own hero. Like, no one's coming to save us in life. You got to do the inner work on yourself. Like, we are here to grow and evolve, not to live the same year over and over again. We're here to actually live and grow and expand who we are in life, I believe. And that's up to us to be our own hero. And yet we need support in that. Like, all of the heroes have support parties, and if you go back to mythologies and movies and all of that, they don't do it on their own. So that comes down to, who are your circle who support you?
Right.
And it's generally not family, it's generally people who don't have a vested interest but who will support you no matter what. So it's finding those people and asking for their support and creating that. So that's the book.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, not only do you have the book, but you have a coaching program as well, right?
Yes. So I host women's inner circles, and I call them inner circles because they are tight, small circles, modeled on Napoleon Hill's masterminds, which in our society today has become an overused word, and that people don't always understand that, his ideal of that is that it's a small circle of people. So I work with people in those circles. We do one-on-ones as well, and they really create that hub, if you like, that hive, that inner circle of women who will support them no matter what. And I also do one-on-one coaching, and I also do one-off numerology reports for people who want them, for different things. So yeah, there's a variety of ways that I help people.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there one number that stands out that's more important than any other number when you're talking business?
You mean as far as numerology goes?
Yes.
We all birth codes can be in business. It's the shape of how you model that business. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you want to have a big team, whether you want to run a corporation, those kinds of things will be determined by your code.
Right.
So there is no one code that does better in business.
There's no magic number out there. It's really kind of depends on the person.
And the thing is that you don't get to choose your code. You get to choose how you show up in it. So energy, of course, is on a pendulum swing. You can be in the flow with it, or you can be stuck in the mud. Or somewhere in between, right? And that is where choice comes in, right? The universe gives you this code when you come into the world, and you get to choose how you show up in it and what you do with it.
Yeah, nice. Okay, talk to me a little bit about your extraordinary leader circle and your extraordinary mom circle.
Yeah, so they're those tight circles that I was alluding to before. So the extraordinary leaders circle is for women who know they are leaders, and yet they are kind of not feeling safe and secure to put themselves out there with their gifts. So usually they are women who have intuitive gifts, who are spiritual in some way and have gifts to share with the world that we can't necessarily sit on a table and look at. They're not selling furniture like you are, Sharon, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so that comes with its whole, how do I even talk to people about it? How do I even feel confident knowing that, I can ask for money for this when I've been doing it forever for people and not charging them?
And it's really hard for women to do that, right? It's hard for women to put a value on themselves.
Really hard, especially when it's not a tangible item that you're exchanging, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this then becomes, and the paradox there is that these women who have these gifts to share with the world, like where we are in humanity's evolution at the moment, they are needed more and more and more, right? And the more that they can receive money for that, the more that they can actually do that, the more people they can help, because then they're not relying on having to go to jobs to pay the bills and doing that in the evenings and weekends and things, so the more they can step into who they are and sharing that with the world, the more people they can help, which is what the world needs, right? So that
Right.
then becomes, and this is what I was talking about before, and there's those inner circles. Your family's not going to be able to support you around that because they are not in it. You need people in that circle who are on a similar path, right? Who understand where you're at. And so that is what that circle is about, is helping women in that situation really step into owning those gifts, and making a business out of them, creating a business and a lifestyle that fits for them. So always coming back to, let's create the lifestyle we want for us as women and those we love, right? And the Extraordinary Mum Circle is for women like me those years ago, where you've come out of a relationship status change, and you're making money, you're looking after your children and everything's going well. And what else is there? Like, who are you now? What do you want from life? And that's a very lonely time for women, really, because they are so busy on this, doing what needs done each day, and often, almost collapsing into bed at the end of the day. And yet there's this, so when is it going to be my turn? Like I made it. I made it through this change in my life. And what's next?
Right. Right. And I think that's important because especially single moms, they're so busy surviving that they forget a little bit of self-care, or that there is a tribe out there for them.
And it can be a very lonely time.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So now I want to talk about a little bit of some of your favorite things. You mentioned that you perform magic with fabric and threads. So does that mean you sew?
Yeah, I love playing with fabric and thread. So I sew anything and everything, and I also stitch and knit and crochet and all of the things. I was blessed with I learned all of that as a young child and woman, really, and then just kept doing it.
Yeah.
And
I
I
have
just
tried.
love the satisfaction and the joy, the pleasure. It's, for me, it's a really great way to create and to be in a different world. It's one thing when I get into creating with fabric and thread, I forget about everything else that's going on and actually have space for me.
That's nice. Okay, tell people how they can reach out to you. You're coming a long way from New Zealand, but tell people if they want to reach you, how do they do that?
So the easiest way probably to reach me is via my website, which is daphnewells.com. Or you can email me at daphne@daphnewells.com, or you will find me on social media under Daphne Wells on LinkedIn and Daphne B. Wells on Facebook and Instagram. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
And of course, if our listeners have want to get a hold of you, I'm happy to they can reach out to me and I can forward all your information to them.
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions that your listeners have. Always my inbox is open for people with questions because, I'm here to help people.
That's amazing. Thank you, Daphne, so much for doing this.